So, welcome. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday morning meditation. And on behalf of the Insight Meditation Community Washington and IMCW Center for Mindful Living, welcome to this Sunday meditation class. My name is Hugh Byrne, and I've been teaching a Sunday morning class now probably for 22, I think, with IMCW. And we've changed a little bit. I used to teach every week, and now we've got with different responsibilities. We're sharing the load, and we'll kind of be letting everyone know about some of the developments there in the near future. We have different teachers teaching different weeks, and typically, I think I'd be teaching on the first Sunday. Welcome, Bettina and Robin. Great to see you. Jessica, all those joining us. So a little bit about, I'll just say a few words about myself. I teach with IMCW, teach a lot, online as well. I was just teaching this morning a class with Insight Timer, a live session. So I'm going to be talking on the same theme here. So I feel it's very, very alive and very fresh, the theme today, which is, Buddhist story really of the four heavenly messengers. And I'm going to try and kind of relate it closely to our lives, and our own practice today. I teach around the DC area and sometimes outside in the US. And Rebecca, my partner, and I are leaving on Wednesday morning bright and early to teach a retreat in Ireland. I'm going to go see my family or some relatives in Ireland and family in London and in England. So be gone for a few weeks. And that I have lots going on in my life right now, but I'm going to integrate that more into the talk today. And then to say a few more words about the class and the sponsors of the class. As many of you know, IMCW was formed probably in mid-90s, 96, I think, around Tara Brach and her teachings. And she was kind of the central teacher for many years, but many other classes developed, as well as a Wednesday night class around the Greater Washington area, including the Sunday morning class. And IMCW grew into a much larger community with many, many classes. And you go to IMCW's website, you'll see many teachers offering different programs, and just to say about IMCW now, as many of you may know, or some of you may know, I don't know how many, but IMCW recently purchased a retreat center, which has always been a big issue for IMCW, but for so many other organizations, just having a reliable place to offer retreats. IMCW is in the has purchased, is in the process. It's done. A done deal. Seven Oaks, a retreat center down in Madison County, Virginia, about half an hour north of Charlottesville, and I was co-taught a retreat there back in I think late April, early May, and many other retreats are being offered there. So I definitely encourage you strongly to check out the upcoming retreat offerings from IMCW, and the different teachers. Regina's just come back from one that Sylvia Garcia of IMCW and Walt Opie from the Bay Area taught, and and a lot of other ones coming up. So I definitely encourage you to check out IMCW and the Seven Oaks Retreat Centre for anything longer than a weekend or longer a week, etc. retreats. And then the Centre for Mindful Living is part of IMCW, and it was founded we got it going in around 2011. We had a space in Tenleytown, Northwest DC, and for about 10 years, and different programs, meditations and classes. I used to offer this class there for a number of years. And then the pandemic hit and pretty much everything went online. And we kept the center for I think about a year and a half, into the pandemic, but we weren't using it, and we're paying money for it, so we had to let go of the center. But Center for Mindful Living (CML) has continued in an incredibly vibrant community, in part online, but more and more offerings in person as well. So I encourage you to check out, if you're new to these sessions or this class, check out both the IMCW website and the CML website, and wonderful offerings, both teacher-led offerings, but also Sangha-led, community-led offerings of CML. And one final thing to say, that I think one lovely features of the Centre for Mindful Living is that it's provided a forum or platform, if you like, or community for newer teachers to come in and teach, which is less possible within the larger IMCW kind of community. It's a kind of more of a complex process there. But through CML, many teachers who are probably the majority are graduates, of Jack Cornfield and Tara Brock's program, the Mindfulness Meditation Teacher Certificate Program, MMTCP. And so wonderful offerings from a large variety of teachers. I'm not sure exactly how many, but in the 20 to 30 range, and also graduates of other programs. So just invite you to check out all of the offerings, and we'll be sharing some links to those. So with that as kind of more the business, welcome Julie, and welcome everyone joining us. Welcome Terry. So just in terms of the format of the class, the way I like to begin is with a meditation, probably around 20 minutes of a sit. Then go into the talk. We won't, I think, be having mindful movement today, but hopefully next time we'll have more time to arrange that. But we'll then have some time, hopefully, for the talk, and then some time for sharing, and just some announcements at the end. So with those many words, we'll move into kind of going inward for a time. So invite you to begin by just sitting in a way that's relaxed and comfortable. Sitting with your back straight, letting yourself be present in a way that you feel relaxed as much as you can. You're also aware, alert, conscious of what's going on around and internally. If it's helpful, you can just let your eyes close, let the attention come inward, kind of dropping out of the everyday mind as much as you can. The thoughts of the future and things that have happened in the past, as much as you can, just letting them just rest to the side. You can come back to them later, and just consciously being present for what is here right now, what is present in the body, in the heart, in the emotions, and in the mind. If it's comfortable, just letting your eyes close, letting your attention come inward. It can be helpful to just maybe take a couple or a few full breaths, nice deep inhalation, filling the chest and filling the lungs, and then a long, slow release, letting go, as though you're breathing out any stresses or worries or cares as much as you can. Breathing in, calming the body. Breathing out, calming the mind. And as you arrive and settle, you might find it helpful to invite a smile or a half smile to your face. Just consciously kind of inviting that, the expression of a smile, the attitude of a smile, letting it come inward into the body, into your body if you can. And just feeling any shift perhaps that may come from the smile. The smile tends to send a message to our brain and to our nervous system that we can relax, that we don't have to be hypervigilant, we can just settle. And the smile can be an expression of how we wish to meet whatever we're experiencing, both in the body, internally, in the heart, and also in the world around us. It's that attitude of a smile. It can also be helpful just to put a hand on your heart, on your belly, if it feels good, to just connect with yourself, with this life, this living, breathing body, heart, mind, spirit. So taking your seat, as Jack Cornfield likes to say, taking your seat between heaven and earth. Sitting in a way that's dignified, alert, and at the same time relaxed, a sense of ease. Nothing you need to really do or know where to go, just to be here with what's present for you right now. And as much as you can, holding whatever is present, whatever you're aware of, with kindness and with care. I find it helpful at the beginning of a meditation to reflect on gratitude and the things that we have in our lives that we easily take for granted and easily focus on what's difficult or what seems to be a problem. We easily forget about all the things that, and people and conditions that really support our life, that really in many ways beautify our lives, make our lives more joyful, more spacious, more present. You might just bring to mind, what you feel grateful for in your life. So many people in our lives, our loved ones, our partners, if we have them, if we parents and children, grandchildren, pets. Just letting yourself take in any feelings of appreciation, of gratitude for what you've been given in this life. There's also all the wonders and the beauty of the natural world, or the animals and the plants, the trees, the air, the sun, the moon. All of this life, this world, this universe, freely given. We didn't have to do anything to earn it. Just all here for us. And we can be grateful. So many other things are a measure of health, perhaps some levels of security and well-being. Just letting yourself in whatever way feels appropriate to you, just taking that in, taking them in. For me, I come back to all of the teachings and the practices that I, find it hard to imagine my life without this time. The teachings of the Buddha, all those who've come down through the tradition of the Buddha's teachings, and all the other wise spiritual traditions, whether it's formal religions or spiritual teachers of many kinds, who've offered their understanding of truth, of paths to greater freedom in our lives. You might think of how these teachings and practices, and perhaps in the broadest way, have supported your life, perhaps continue to support your life. Personally, I find gratitude one of the most powerful of the spiritual practices. I find it connects me with life and appreciation with others, with the whole of this living, breathing world, taking us out of our more contracted sense of being stuck, being clinging to things, being caught up in aversion or confusion. Think of this practice of gratitude as like a fifth Brahma Vihara, a fifth of the divine abodes with loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. This practice of gratitude. The Buddha spoke about it as practices of gladdening the mind, gladdening the heart. And providing a kind of bedrock of warmth and connection to life and to all beings everywhere. And just opening to what's present for you right now in the body. What are you noticing? What's here? Can you meet it? Say yes to what's here, what's present. If there's some tightness or some restlessness, can you make space for this? Can you say yes to this rather than feeling you shouldn't be feeling this? Just let the awareness be large enough to include this. The Ajahn Sumedho, an abbot in the American-born abbot in the Thai forest tradition, he uses the expression, it's like this. Whatever comes up, whatever's present, it's like this. Restlessness, it's like this. This is how it feels at this time. Sadness, it's like this. Joy, peace, it's like this. So nothing needs to be held on to or pushed away or escaped from. Just allowing whatever is here to be here, to come and to go in its own time. Now, including the emotions and moods that might be present. Just bringing a non-controlling awareness, just letting whatever is here be here. Not clinging, not resisting, not judging. This moment, this experience, just as it is. Letting it come, letting it be. When it's ready, letting it go. The renowned Zen teacher Suzuki Roshi said, renunciation, or letting go, doesn't consist in giving up the things of this world, but in accepting that they go away. Renunciation doesn't consist, or letting go doesn't consist in giving up the things of this world, but in accepting that they go away. Really, that everything goes away, the joys and the sorrows, all of the changing experiences of our lives, they all come and they go. And if we can bring a kind and accepting attention, awareness to whatever is here, then nothing really has to be problematical. It's this moment arising and passing. Some things will be more difficult, some will be more straightforward or easy. But if we bring this attitude of, in Rumi's terms, welcoming the guests, saying yes to what is, everything can come and go without it leading to suffering. In our breathing, our breath can be an anchor for our awareness, if that's helpful. Just resting the attention on the breath, in breath and out breath, however it is. And when the mind goes off into plans or worries or daydreams or memories, and we notice that, we can just gently and kindly come back again. It's a very simple practice in many ways, but one that we have to keep coming back to and perhaps relearning, because our habit energies are strong. We have lots of things that take us away. So in a way, we're kind of swimming against the stream, coming back, training the heart and the mind. And so it becomes more of our default to be here rather than to be somewhere else, lost in thought, on our way somewhere. We're never really being asked more than to be with this moment as it is showing up right now. The mind creates scenarios of, yes, but what about this? And what about the future? And we can just bow to that, but come back to this moment without judgment. As Dorothy Hunt says, peace is this moment without judgment. This moment in the heart space where everything that is welcome. just have a quiet minute or two, and then I'll just share a poem to finish. You might take, you might take a moment to just appreciate, to just perhaps bring awareness to your experience, how this meditation was for you, what you experienced, what you noticed. Just take a moment to appreciate your own effort, your effort to be present, to be here. However, whatever, the mind was doing, even if it was lost a lot of the time or you were sleepy or restless, just appreciate your intention and your practice. We'll finish with a short poem from Wu Men, Chinese poet, called 10,000 Flowers in Spring. 10,000 flowers in spring, the moon in autumn, a cool breeze in summer, snow in winter. If your mind isn't clouded by unnecessary things, this is the best season of your life. If your mind isn't clouded by unnecessary things, this is the best season of your life. Take your time coming back, opening your eyes if they're closed, coming back. And welcome to anyone who joined us during the meditation. Happy to have you with us and happy to all be together today. I hope everyone is keeping cool. Here we're in different places, but at least here on the East Coast, it's and I understand in the Midwest as well, we have a heat dome over us, and it's intensely hot. I think it was maybe 100 degrees yesterday, maybe in the high 90s, so it's still around for a bit longer. So please stay cool. So welcome again, everyone. And what I'd like to do today is talk about one of the would say a very beloved teaching in the. Share this really a beloved teaching in the Buddhist tradition, and it's the story and the teaching kind of around what are called the four heavenly messengers. And I know for many of you will be familiar with these four heavenly messengers. I teaching a couple of classes today, one earlier and our regular Sunday class, and I had a couple of themes that I wanted to talk about, that were alive for me, but there was so much going on in my own life and with Rebecca and in our lives that I was kind of asked myself what's most alive right now, and it was obviously kind of what was directly in front of me and of us right now. And this kind of the teaching around teaching and the practices around the four heavenly messengers of sickness, aging, death, and I would say the fourth is really the practices that help us work with these life conditions as well as everything in life. The practices that we're exploring together today. That this teaching was kind of at the heart of what I'm involved in right now, and it felt like this is the most alive thing for me today. So that's kind of where this talk is coming from and where I'm coming from at this time. So with that, just to say that this teaching around the four heavenly messengers is, as I said, one of the best known stories in the Buddhist tradition, and I think is a really wonderful story about seeing things clearly as they are, and of letting go of clinging, which is the heart of the teachings, and finding freedom from suffering, freedom amidst life's conditions, and the most kind of, in a sense, some of the most central conditions of life and the most challenging conditions of life, as many of us know, are when we're sick or when other loved ones are sick, when we're confronting aging. Anyone here confronting aging? I don't know. Looking, he says tongue in cheek. Sam's got his hand up. We're all confronting aging, but some more in a more pointed way, perhaps. Sickness, aging, and of loved ones as well. For some of us, depending on where we are in our life, it might be our parents. Some of us, it might be more centrally our own lives, our loved ones. And then, of course, death, which is the most kind of essential question of life, really. I kind of that we're all going to die. And yet, as we know in our culture, it's something that is we all recognize, and yet it's something that we tend to push off to the side. We often hide behind, yes, let's have it happen there in nursing homes or in hospitals, or kind of, so that we're not really engaging in it like in a full-on way, which I think reflects, some of the fears and avoidance we have about looking at our own life and death and that of loved ones, And the teachings, the Dharma teachings and other wisdom teachings can help us really engage in a very different way with these, with these three heavenly messengers, with this sickness, aging, and death, and all of life's conditions. And so, what I want to do today is kind of look at the classical story of the four heavenly messengers, just in a shortened version. Because it is a wonderful, wonderful story, I don't think in any way a true story, a historically accurate story of the Buddha's life, but it's kind of something that was developed in the hundreds of years after the Buddha's awakening, his teaching, his death, and how the teachings were shared with people. And I think it's not true historically, but I find it really true symbolically and in practice. It has a truth to it that when we engage with it and connect with these teachings, it can be profoundly freeing. In that sense, it's true. It's true because it's freeing. And the story, as you probably may well have kind of heard some version of this, is of Siddhartha, who was to become the Buddha to be, through his own practices and struggles and search, would become the Buddha. But this time he was born, some 2,600 years ago, into a really powerful, wealthy family in what is today the northern India and near Nepal. And his father was a very powerful lord. He wasn't a king, but he was a kind of a sub-ruler, great wealth and power. And Siddhartha, was born, and his father invited various prophets and seers to come along and prophesy, what would his life be like. And one of these, I believe his name was Ashita, had a prophecy that the new young Siddhartha would either go on to become a great worldly ruler, kind of in the footsteps of his father, perhaps even greater in power and wealth and all of that influence, or he would renounce the worldly life and become a great spiritual teacher, a great teacher of wisdom, of awakening. And the father, hearing this, Shuddhodana, clearly prefers the former to the latter. He doesn't want his son to go off and become some weird old monastic somewhere, He wants him to become a great ruler like himself, great ambitions for him. And so in the story, his father creates conditions whereby Siddhartha is surrounded completely by comfort, by luxury, by privilege, everything that his money and power could buy, and a palace for each of the different seasons, the 3 seasons of the year in India, various people waiting on him hand and foot, and all of the things, some of them are, you think of, in the way it's the stories are told of courtesans kind of waiting on his every pleasure, and all of these things, that make life comfortable, easy. What a wonderful life, we would think in our culture, the equivalent today of, having a huge yacht and a private plane and all the things that make life comfortable and easy. So that was kind of, and the other side of that is in the story, the father, keeps from him anything more challenging, difficult, painful, kind of the more in the realm of suffering, keeps him secluded in, and he doesn't really have any wish to, he has everything he wants, doesn't need to go out into the world. But according to the story, he one day he goes out with an advisor and goes out beyond the walls of the palace, and he sees three apparitions in turn, 3 visions, and these are the 3 heavenly messengers. He sees a very sick person, lying in the road, writhing, in pain, sick, and all the things, associated with being really sick and in great discomfort and pain. And, according to the story, the Siddhartha asks his advisor, he said, what is this? And the advisor said, well, this is a sick person. And then the Siddhartha asked, well, does this happen to everyone? And he said, and the advisor said, yes, absolutely. And then Siddhartha asked, will this happen to me? Will this be what I face too? And the advisor says, yes, absolutely. And so each time asking these questions, seeing a sick person, seeing somebody who's become very, very old and indisposed and bent over, hunched, and with great age. And he asks the same question, this is an aging person. Does this happen to everybody? Yes. Will this happen to me? Yes, it will, inevitably. And so the story, Siddhartha really internalizes his own situation where he has all the luxury and comforts of life and everything is hunky-dory, wonderful. And yet this is what he faces in his life. And this is what brings him to this question, is there something that in some way transcends sickness, aging, and death? Not by avoiding it, not by pretending it doesn't exist, because that's what he's already done, as it were, his father has done, pretending those things don't exist, but through engaging with them. And this is really the search that Siddhartha goes on. But before getting there, there's a fourth apparition, the fourth vision. And that fourth vision is of a wandering ascetic. It's of a monk who has nothing in material terms beyond his robes and begging bowl and just the basic conditions to allow him to live, to subsist and live. And yet this spiritual seeker has this countenance of happiness, of peace, of calm, a sense of well-being without anything. So here's Siddhartha, with everything, but troubled, but really troubled, particularly after seeing these visions. And here is this kind of vision of somebody who's, we might know them in our lives, people who are engaged in the world, and yet they're in some way maybe not quite of the world, in the sense they're very much here, but there's a sense of ease amidst the struggles and the strife and the challenges of life. And this fourth messenger, heavenly messenger, the metaphor, this fourth heavenly messenger really provides a kind of signal to Siddhartha that maybe this is the path to the end of suffering, to deep peace, to well-being, to happiness, and that encourages him to, spurs him to go out and to leave the life of luxury and go into the homeless life, cut off his hair and shave his beard and put on the robes of a wandering ascetic and engage in this search for the end of suffering. And I think probably most of you know the outlines of the story of Siddhartha then going to the leading teachers of his time, practicing diligently, gaining great, understanding and practice in various different teachings of meditation and like similar kind of spiritual skills, but not finding the end of suffering, and then embarking on this ascetic search of, living on a grain of rice a day and punishing the body to free the mind. And at a point then recognizing that this isn't the path to the end of suffering. And then eating food and then sitting down under the tree and bringing awareness to his experience. And in that full moon night, 2,600 years ago, awakening to the truth, finding an end to suffering. So that's kind of where the story goes. But coming back to that, these four heavenly messengers, what I'd like to do is just to kind of explore this teaching about about the heavenly messengers, these three, conditions of life that all of us face if we live long enough, at least. We'll age, we'll get sick, we all get sick at some stage, and we will all die. I think most often the focus of these teachings about the four heavenly messengers tend to focus on the first three, of how we engage with sickness, how we engage with aging, how we practice with death and dying. And perhaps less so with the fourth heavenly messenger, which is implicit in any engagement, but not necessarily so explicit, which I want to make more explicit today, which is this fourth heavenly messenger, which all symbolizes or points to the practices and the teachings that help us work with sickness, with aging, with death, and all of the other conditions of life. The focus is typically on these first three. How do we, these conditions arise in all of us. And yet, if we think about it, how do we engage with sickness? We typically or often, we don't like it. We want it to go away. We resist it. If we can, we'll make it go away as quickly as possible. If there's some medication we can take that can just, get rid of that headache, get rid of that pain, But, there's deeper sicknesses and illnesses that are not susceptible to those, quick fixes. And, how we engage with them makes all the difference in the world, And there will be sicknesses in our lives, or maybe put it another way. The more we open wholeheartedly to the truth of what we're experiencing, this is how it feels, rather than, getting caught up in our minds of this should be different, this should go away, I want to get rid of this, how long is this going to last, bemoaning ourselves, complaining, all the things we can get into around any of these conditions, but just focusing on sickness now, that's one way of engaging. But another is to say, this is how life is showing up right now. Can I meet it wholeheartedly? Can I be truly present with this sickness, this feeling, I had just aside, I ate something about 3 or 4 days ago, and I woke in the middle of the night with all of the things. I won't get into TMI about this, but all of the things that come with food poisoning. And it was like a storm passing through. I know it wasn't pleasant in any way, but it did pass, and I obviously worked at just being with it as much as I could. And, but these things kind of come along, and how we meet them can make all of the difference in the world. And I'm particularly talking about when things, when we get into more challenging and difficult expressions of these, of sickness. And similarly with aging, how do we look at our own aging? Many of us, to quote somebody who's here right now, who will remain nameless, many of us are in the late afternoon of our lives. Thank you, Regina. We're not, we've got more days behind us than we have ahead of us. How do we hold this? How do we hold aging? How do we meet that? I can, without breaching any confidentiality, I can share someone, who was somewhat a little bit older than me, at a retreat we taught just a couple of months ago, and, was really, in sharing, in a group, how troubled he was in, having a very, very, happy life and a partnership and a family and all of that. And yet really struggling with the fact that in whatever, 5 years or 10 years, or who knows, would die. It was something that it was like, it was a very, very painful thing to him. And that was what he was working with, and that was one of the reasons what he was bringing to the retreat, that this wasn't an easy, in any way, an easy thing for him to deal with. And I wonder for each of us, how are we engaging with this process of aging? Is it something that we're fighting, that somehow this shouldn't be happening, or this should be different, or I wish I were, X years younger, or and similarly with sickness, and obviously as well with dying and with death. Both. I mean, and these heavenly messengers in our own lives, but also in the lives of those that we love. The aging, sickness, aging, and death of, for some of us, of parents. Depending on where we are in that cycle. Parents and others in our lives. How, and often it's extremely challenging, those times. For myself, my mother in her final 5 years went into dementia, and it was really, really challenging for her. It was very, very difficult, very painful, and I think in a way, in the end, death came as something of a relief, and that, she felt she'd had a full life and a big family and all of that. But that was a very, very difficult time of her life. And probably for many of us, we've had loved ones in those situations. So how are we engaging with these heavenly messengers? There's I think, a powerful teaching from the Hindu epic, the Mahabharata, where Yudhishthira, one of the kind of central figures in that great epic, is asked a number of questions, and he gets the questions right, and then he comes to the final question, where the great kind of spiritual figure asks him, what is the greatest wonder of all? What is the greatest wonder of all, of life, of the world? And he says, the greatest wonder of all is every day, all around us, death takes lives beyond counting, yet those who live think death can never come to them, or will never come to them. And in a way, many of us are in that situation. I looked up on Googled and how many people die every day on average in the world. Maybe you've done it, and it's around 150,000, give or take a few thousand. 150,000, 60 million people in the whole world die every year. Death is all around us, and yet we tend to push it away. We hide it away. We often deny it in our own lives. We want to be engaged in life. We want to live. Perhaps we want to live forever. And death is, we know it's out there somewhere, but we're not necessarily engaging with it, or not really engaging with it, looking death in the face. You could say until we really do integrate death into our life, we're never going to really come to what, in spiritual teachings is often called the deathless, where death as a physical reality happens, but we don't have to be, we don't have to have it be a cause of suffering in our lives. So the ways we avoid engaging, and on the other side, the power of meeting these heavenly messengers wholeheartedly, really with an open heart, turning towards them, which is really the heart of all the teachings, to turn towards our experience, to say yes to what is. That's, what, in a sense, what we're in spiritual practice. All we're really ever being asked to do is to show up fully for our experience here and now. Not tomorrow, not next week or next year. Because that, as the Bible's Jewish Christian Bible says, sufficient unto the day is the evil there. Have no thought for tomorrow. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. Tomorrow, it will be tomorrow. right now, what, and in the Buddhist teachings and other spiritual practice, what we're asked to deal with is what's here now. Not 10 minutes. How am I meeting this moment? One of the teachers I find most powerful, most strongly, kind of reinforce this is Eckhart Tolle, the power of now. Just that, we can always cope with the present moment, he says. We can never cope with something that's just a mind creation. We can't cope with the future. We can't really cope with it, but we have the capacity to meet this moment. And that's really the heart of our practice. The heart of our practice is, can I be here with this? With sickness, if sickness is here, with aging, if it's here, with death and dying, if that's what's here. And I was reflecting reflecting on the conditions that we are going through at the moment, which is a lot of this engaging with the heavenly messengers, just to share without, breaching confidentiality or anything, that we're dealing in our lives with a family member who's, dealing with, in a very kind of immediate kind of way, with memory loss and the conditions, that are associated with that, and it calling for, a lot of very specific things to be done in fairly short period of time, in order to support them, along with other people as well. And that's been a very, very central, part of our lives in this recent period. And also, at the same time, a family member who's been going through the late stages of cancer, and with a lot of difficulties and pain and suffering in that. And he passed away on just 2 days ago. And so all of this is kind of here and very, very much, at the center of our lives. And what is done for me really is kind of very much force me into the present moment, into like the question of what really matters right now. And things that matter less, they may be kind of important, but can be dealt with further down the line, can be kind of somewhat put to one side. And it really calls for, like, how am I showing up? How are we showing up right now in these situations, in these conditions of life? And I have to say for myself, I couldn't really imagine dealing. Obviously you do the best you can, but how it would be without having these teachings and these practices. It's like, for me, they make all of the difference in the world. Even if things are difficult, and, obviously we all make mistakes and all of that, but that we can keep coming back to saying, can I be here now with this? Can I show up fully now for this? And I was very much brought back to the kind of the Zen teaching of Suzuki Roshi, where he says, the most important thing is to remember the most important thing. Sit with that one, one of those kind of, but yeah, it's like pointing what's really important to deal with, and what's not so important. What is the most important thing? And in a way, what the most important thing I find is, how am I engaging with this, whatever this is right now? Can I be here fully for this right now? That for me, it always comes, and that will lead to what is right action, what is the right choice to make, which, we can sometimes make mistakes about. But if it's coming from that ground of, being grounded in the truth of, can I be here fully now with this, then more naturally, wise speech, wise action will tend to arise out of that. And it's had me thinking a lot in terms of triage. I don't know, not, that term arose out of like the military medicine, of how to, in the battlefield, taking care of those with the greatest need before you take care of those who have lesser need, etc. Kind of separation. I found it was from the word trie, which is to separate. So what we're doing really is separating. We're saying, this is really what I need to focus on right now. This is maybe still important, but not at the same level. And with that sense of what's most important, what's the most important thing, and being here now, these are the practices that for me help me to be, to be here and not to be kind of completely bowled over when there seems to be like 10 things calling for attention, and if you don't have an ability, A, to be present, and B, to have some sense of what is more and less important, then it can feel completely overwhelming. It can be like, how do I do this? So having these teachings, having these practices, being present, knowing what matters most, prioritizing really our inner life, of like, can I show up fully right now? Can I be here for this person, this situation, this moment? And then what does that, how does that play out, in action, and hopefully in wise action. So what I'm, I think emphasizing in the face of these three first heavenly messengers and all of the other conditions that we can find challenging in our lives, how can we bring these teachings and practices to really fully bear on sickness when we're sick, when we confront aging, things that don't work as well as they did before, So the lovely line from my friend, all my friends are gone, and my Leonard Cohen line, I ache in the places where I used to play, and I'm hungry for love, but I'm not coming on. I'm just playing my role every day in the Tower of Song. Leonard Cohen. Anyway, excuse that aside. It just, I keep coming back to that sense of, that kind of how he speaks of getting older and stuff. But how are we engaging with these conditions of life? How are these heavenly messengers, for everyone here, how are these heavenly messengers showing up in your life? What is calling for attention? And how are you engaging with these heavenly messengers? This fourth heavenly messenger giving us the kind of the practices and the teachings to meet all these changing experiences in a wholehearted way. Because Eckhart Tolle talks in his book, The Power of Now, he talks about the kind of succeeding in the inner life and succeeding in the outer life. It's very important and valuable to try and make things happen, to plan for the future and, do things that will create conditions that will be favorable, to get the job that we love or the relationship we want to be. All of those things are really important. But, as he stresses, it's the inner life that's most important. If we can train, the heart and the mind, train to be present, train to be really fully here for ourselves and our loved ones and our world, then the outer, and he speaks about, you could fail in the outer life. You might not succeed in work or in business or in different areas of life. But if you succeed in the inner life, again, I'm not talking about success in a grasping or a clinging sense, but really, find out who you really are in this life. Really come back to knowing yourself and freeing yourself from suffering, freeing ourselves from suffering. That's far and more important. You could be, living in a hermit's hut and do that, and that would be far greater freedom than becoming the richest person in the world. So you could fail in the outer and succeed in the inner, or you could fail in the inner, in the sense of forgetting who you are, and succeed in the outer, be wonderful, hugely successful in the world. And then you'd be back where Siddhartha started off, is there an end to suffering? Because you'd be caught up in suffering. So the inner life is really the core of everything, And if we can truly align with our inner life, if we can really truly train our hearts and our minds, then the outer life will tend to align itself. He's got a lovely quote on it, which I don't have in my head, but the more we open to our experience, the more the world opens to us, the more the world tends to align. I mean that in the larger sense of not necessarily worldly success, but in a larger sense of alignment. There's a flow between the inner and the outer. There's not like I'm doing this outer thing, and then I'm somehow feeling bad about it or conflicted about it. There's a natural flow between the inner and the outer. So my invitation just to finish, I think here, lots more can be said, could be said, and kind of may be said at other times, but just to take these heavenly messengers, take this kind of symbolic story, and with its richness, there's lovely versions of it, lovely kind of embellishments of it. But the main thing is the core of it, these conditions of life, and the way we can meet these conditions in a way that really, in the true sense of the word, transcend the suffering that may be inherent in these conditions, not ending sickness, aging, and death, which will always be part of life, but ending the suffering in relation to them. So being able, when we do die, to meet our death or our dying with an open heart. There may still be pain, and I think it may have been Suzuki Roshi who died of cancer, and who said, was in pain, I believe, and said, this is the Buddha with cancer. This is not saying he was the Buddha, but just saying this is the Buddha. This is bringing kind of awakening to a situation that is very painful and difficult, and who knows what that may be. But with training and with practice, we can cultivate the qualities to meet sickness, aging, and death really in a wholehearted way. So, I wish us all well as we meet these conditions of life and all of the other conditions of life. And I think I'll leave it there.